Greetings, everybody. It's April 30th. Time for another Thursday chill where we talk about this and that. And I'm also going to be taking your live questions about the political situation. So let's see who's here. Let me know in the chat where you are Zooming from. And I know some of you are watching the replay, but you can also leave me a comment saying where you are watching from. All right, we have Arkansas, Minneapolis. Oh, someone just asked, is the circus tent on fire yet? Good question. Beaverton, Oregon. Let's see, Minneapolis. Montana, Berlin, Germany. Hello, sister Germany. Jefferson, Georgia. Blacksburg, Virginia. Let me put the comments on the stage so everyone can see what's going on in the chat. And let me see if my mods are here. If you're one of my mods, can you just say hello in the chat so I can acknowledge you? I appreciate my mods. They keep everything running smoothly. You know, we have like no drama in the chat. Almost never. We almost never have any drama in the chat. Everybody's civil, everybody's kind, and I just really appreciate that. And a lot of it has to do with the mods. Some of it has to do with our spirit guides protecting us from the nonsense. I sometimes hear my mutuals on different, platforms talking about having to deal with trolls and negative comments. And I never have to experience that. I'm really grateful for that. Hello, Vesties. Detroit. Someone coined that term, which I think is very funny. Florida, Lake Lure, North Carolina, New Mexico loves me. Thank you, New Mexico. My favorite aunt was from New Mexico. She lived in Alamogordo. And Mary Lou, my favorite auntie. And she made the best homemade tortillas and sopapillas. And what I love about New Mexico is the blue corn. Chicago in the house. That's my hometown. Oh, Empress. Oh, where'd they go? Empress says we should hit the like button on your way in. So yeah, listen to Empress. I don't know. Maybe she's a mod. Mods always have great suggestions. All right. Who else? Nola is in the house. Pacifica. My mom used to live in Pacifica. I have such fond memories of Pacifica because my mom lived in an apartment overlooking the ocean. And I used to visit her, and I worked when I worked a graveyard shift, and I would sleep on her patio. And, I'd get off at midnight, or I'd go into work at midnight, and I'd get off at like 7 a.m, and I'd get to her apartment, and she would make me these giant cups of cafe au lait, French style. And because we lived in France when I was young, and she would make me this big cup of cafe au lait, and we'd have breakfast together. And then she'd go to work, and then I would sleep during the day on the patio with the ocean, all that fog rolling in. It was so beautiful. And then she'd come home from work, and we'd have dinner together, and then I'd go to work in the evening. So it's a very fond memory I have of my mother, who's no longer with us. My mother, Michael. Oh, already getting gifts. Oh my God, Nettie, thank you for the gift. How kind. We got Southern Ontario in the house. Marysville, California, Everett, Washington. I'm about to be up in Washington to give some talks at the University of Washington. I'm excited about that. I used to teach in Seattle at Seattle U, and I've always loved Seattle, and I go back there whenever I can. Vancouver, Washington also, been there as well. Volusia County. I used to live in Volusia County at Casadega Spiritualist Camp. All right. Cleveland, Ohio, Salem, Missouri. Got 227 in here. So what are we talking about today? So I usually talk a little bit about what's going on. And then lately I've been taking questions. where I'm tuning in intuitively to your questions in the live and answering them with whatever comes up. We just got some good news today I wanted to share. I didn't get a chance to post yet today because I've been busy working on my new book. And but I saw some good news, a little bit of news. So after, what is it? How many days of the shutdown? 76 days or so. I think it was, someone correct me if I have the number of days wrong, but this really long shutdown that the Red Hats were hoping would force, they were like, oh, we're not gonna reopen until we get funding for the frozen water. And in the end, the Blue Hats won. There was no funding for there was no funding for frozen water. So that was a win today that I wanted to share. I had a story, I think I got it from Substack, pulled up, that I was going to refer to, and now I can't remember where it is. Let's see if I have it handy, because I was going to read from it just some of the wins. We got to celebrate all the wins, you know. Okay, it's not pulled up anymore. Okay. But anyway, it's a major win, and it's a big deal because, you know, the Blue Hats are totally outnumbered, and they're having to be really, really creative about how they fight. And because the Red Hats have control of everything, the House, the Senate, the executive, and the courts, the Supreme Court anyway, not all the courts, thank God. And so they've had to be really creative. And so I'm very impressed that they stuck to their guns and they held out and they refused to vote for any funding for frozen water. And they won that battle. And that's really in large part because of us, because the people have been coming out in large forces and speaking out and writing letters and forming, you know, rapid response teams and doing everything that we can to express our dismay and disgust with what's been happening to our neighbors who are immigrants and who have been kidnapped and mistreated, right? And so because of it, they've been defunded. So we got to celebrate that. And yes, someone's already saying, okay, but we had a bad outcome for the voting rights. Yes, we did. We're going to talk about that. So if you don't already know, there was a decision made at the Supreme Court level that in effect gutted the Voting Rights Act, which was passed in, I don't remember the date, in the 60s, to address our 200-year legacy of extreme racial discrimination in voting. So it's been very difficult for Black people in particular and people of color in general to vote in this country for most of the history of this country. For most of the history of this country, it was only white men that could vote. And because of the Voting Rights Act, that changed. Finally, for the first time, people were able to vote. And they've just gutted that, which is... yeah, it's really bad news, but I'm going to tell you how I see it. I'm going to reframe it because, you know, I see things from a bigger picture. And I tend to stay very hopeful, even in the worst of times, because my guides are always showing me the bigger picture. And, you know, one of the things that my guide said a long time ago, which I have to just keep reminding myself and reminding everyone else, one of the things they said was that we have to go through some things before we get to the other side. And the reason we have to go through some things is that there are a lot of people who needed to wake up. Now, there's a lot fewer people that need to wake up now because the majority of us are now awake. And that's wonderful. From November of 2024 to now, we've had a total sea change in consciousness in terms of people being aware and awake and, you know, alert to what's really going on. But that process is ongoing. And unfortunately, there are some people who are very kind of self-centered, and self-centered people don't really respond to the suffering of others. They only respond to their own suffering. And it's unfortunate because what that often means is that they have to suffer before they start to pay attention, right? And the way that's playing out for us is that a lot of people who are already awake are also having to suffer, right? So gas prices are affecting all of us, no matter who you voted for, right? No matter how active you've been in the persistence, we're all paying the same price at the pump, right? Why? Because some of those people needed to have that experience to begin to ask the right questions about, well, wait a minute, do I really support this? Maybe I need to get involved. Maybe I need to start paying attention. Maybe I need to, right? Unfortunately, right? That's how some people are. And so when it comes to the voting rights, you know, it's harder to see it with this, right? Because the law was passed predominantly as a result of Black civil rights activism, right? Black people took to the streets, you know, in millions and for years, right, to change things. And many people died to change voting in America. And so Black people don't need to wake up about this. They're not the group that needs to wake up. And so you might be wondering, well, how is this? Who's this going to wake up? Well, this is something that the Red Hats do, is that they pass stuff and they don't really think it through. They're really, really racist, right? And they're really focused on harming certain communities only. And what they don't think through is how that could end up harming other communities. That's what they don't think through. They're also not the brightest bunch, right? We're now in a country where our entire government is not entire. I'm exaggerating, but most of the executive branch, in any case, is a direct result of them choosing the least qualified Nepo baby cronies that they could find, right? So we're dealing with kind of the lowest level of competency in a government that we've had probably in many, many years. So they don't have the training, the education, or the intelligence to think things through at the same level that previous administrations did. Exhibit number 1, the war in Persia, right? They didn't think that one through in terms of the Strait. This is already resulting in consequences. So just today, I heard that in Louisiana, we just had someone in here in Louisiana, right? Someone's in the chat right now in Louisiana. Louisiana. I know I'm saying it wrong. It's Louisiana, right? The governor just announced that they're canceling. Okay, I gotta laugh because this is a chess move. They're canceling the midterms in that state as a direct result of the Red Hats. Because this Supreme Court case was about eliminating districts in Louisiana where Black voters were concentrated, right? So they're trying to redraw maps so that Black voters cannot vote as a block and they get diluted by white voters. And that's why it's a direct attack on the Voting Rights Act, because it's, in this case, it's very racialized. In a lot of cases, it's very racialized. These districts are very racialized. They're not blue hat, red hat districts. They're also focusing on, in particular, areas with concentrations of people of color. That's one of the ways that the Red Hats are doing things, because they're racist. We got to always remember that. It's hard to remember that if you're not a racist person, right? It's hard to remember, oh, this is their lens. This is the way they view the world. Everything for them is in terms of these fake separations between humans, right? Racial groups, gender groups, sexuality, like we're all human beings, but they're really focused on these false separations. Like anyone who has any kind of spiritual understanding knows that we're all just human beings. We're all spirits. We're all spirits and we're all equal, right? And we choose to incarnate into different types of bodies. Some of us choose a brown body, a female body, a gay body, right? We choose these different bodies. But this particular group of people, they're really focused on those bodies, and we got to hierarchically, sort all these bodies, then we got to target certain bodies. I mean, that's the way they think. We have to always remind ourselves, because if you're an anti-racist, right, then you're not going to think that way, but you have to remind yourself, okay, this is how they're thinking. So because they're thinking that way, they're going after like black districts. And so Louisiana governor says, we'll just cancel the terms of mid. And you might think that's very bad news, but I'm laughing because what it is it's someone being creative in the resistance, right? It's people in the persistence are having to become creative. So how did this whole thing start? It started with Red Hats saying, we're going to redraw all the maps to cheat so we can win, because they know they can't win legitimately, right? They didn't win the last one, and they haven't won for a while, and they know they can't win unless they cheat. So they're like, we're going to have some map drawing contests. We're going to have some, we're going to redraw some maps. And then the blue hats were like, two can play at that game. And that was really surprising to the red hats, because traditionally the blue hats have always believed in following the rules and playing fair. And it's kind of been one of our weaknesses, and from a certain perspective. I think it's a good thing to follow the rules, and to be civil. But when you're playing against cheaters, if you insist on following the rules, but the opponent is flouting the rules, then you can't really win that game, right? So the blue hat said, two can play at that game. And it started with my governor, right? New booty. He was like, we're going to redraw all the maps in Cali, and we're going to give the blue hats. And that's what he did. He took it to the voters. We all voted on it. We all said yes. And that's what so it's been this battle, right? Different states. And so they thought they won in Louisiana. They're like, we're going to redraw the maps so that, some people can't vote. Or at least they can't vote in their community. So their vote gets totally diluted. And the governor is like, I'll just cancel the mids because this isn't fair. And so I think they didn't think it through, is my point. They didn't think through the consequences of their cheating. They thought, we'll just redraw maps and we'll gut the Voting Rights Act, and it's all going to work out for us to be able to cheat our way back into office. But it's not going to work out, because they can't predict how people are going to respond to this. Just like no one would have predicted the governor was going to say, we'll just cancel the mids. Now I'm not upset about that, also because my guides have already told me that we don't need to be focused on the mids, the terms of mid, because we're going to be dealing with stuff before that. And so when we get some bad news, one of the things that I'm always encouraging people to do is, before you have a very severe negative reaction to bad news, kind of take a step back and look at it from a larger context and ask yourself, is it really as horrible as it looks? Like, is this really is it really the loss we think it is? Or could it potentially lead to a win down the line? Right. And so what we're seeing right now in terms of waking up is we're seeing the blue hats waking up, right? So the blue hat lawmakers were trying to follow the rules and play fair, and they weren't winning because they were dealing with constant cheating. And then they started to say, okay, well, we're gonna change the rules. And that's where the shutdown came in. And it worked, right? That's also where the redrawing of maps in blue states came from. And there's a lot of waking up happening, where people are rethinking a lot of things. They're reflecting on the current situation, the current institutions, and they're rethinking things. Now, what it looks like to us is a little bit of chaos, right? We're dealing with a little bit of chaos every day, more and more chaos. And that's, of course, disconcerting, especially because we all grew up in a country that had norms, democratic norms and institutions and civility. And, there was just understandings, like if you're the president, you don't invest in corporations that you're funding through your government work. Like, we had understandings. You don't make deals with foreign agents. We had certain understandings, right? And those are all being thrown out the window, and it's forcing us to reflect on what's wrong with our institutions and how corruptible they are. And it's also making us more aware of global power structures and how they've always impacted our political structure, but because it wasn't that dramatic in the past, like now it's dramatic. Before it was more under the radar, subtle, and now it's more in our face, right? But it's forcing us to become more aware. So this is the period of revelation. That's what I keep calling it. We're going through an age of revelation, and the revelation is waking us all up, forcing us to reflect on and think about what's really going on in the world. How are things really structured? How is power actually work? How does the economy actually function? Who's really running things? Who's really benefiting? What's wrong with our structure? What's wrong with our government structure? Because it's been a problem for a while, right? It's just that it's more obvious to certain people now, right? So we're in this period of revelation. So we have to always look at, when we get this bad news, we always have to look at that bigger picture. And so I foresee the Voting Rights Act decision that started in Louisiana is going to turn into another domino effect, like with the map redrawing. And see, here's the thing: the Red Hats lost that. Like, they started that battle of, we're going to redraw maps, but they're losing that battle, right? Because there are more bigger blue hat states that are richer, that have more people. And the only reason we don't really act like we know that is because of the Electoral College. The Electoral College gives sparsely populated states the same vote as heavily populated states like California, New York. It gives them, it tries to kind of give them more power than they really have the population to justify. Which is why, I think that needs to go out the window as well. We have 500 people in here. Let me just stop and make my disclaimer. This is for entertainment purposes only. I am not a journalist. Not a political theorist. I am a psychic medium, a medical intuitive, and a precog. And my spirit guides have tasked me with the job of helping people navigate these difficult times by explaining the spiritual significance of the political events that are happening. So that's what I'm here. That's what I'm here to do. And if you like my work, please, like the video and put a comment at the end of the live, put a comment in the actual replay. After the video is over, we're live right now, but after it's over, it's going to be available on my channel under the live tab. So if you go to my channel, it'll say like videos, shorts, live, and you click the live tab. And all my recordings, my 2.5-hour lives, are all in there. So if you have time and you want to watch them, check it out, and make sure you hit the like button. And if you can hype, that's a good thing too. Apparently it puts me out in the algorithm. Okay, we got a member here for 6 months. Uh-oh, I wasn't paying attention. I need mods. Where are my mods? Okay. I need to assign more mods. Okay. I used to know how to do that. Let me see if I can remember how to do it real quick. If anyone, I'll take mod, volunteers. Someone's spamming the comment section. See, as soon as I said today, oh, that never happens. That's when it happens. Okay, I'm about to assign more. Okay, I think the issue is I have to do it in the other app. I have to go to YouTube to do it. Let me see. Uh-oh. All right. Well, let's see. All right, if you're here now, just give me a moment. I'm just trying to add more mods. And okay, I just added another mod. I had to go to a different app. Okay, lemon gelato, I'm going to add you as well. Because lemon gelato is one of my mods on TikTok. I'm getting a lot of thank you for the volunteers. All right, so I've added a few more mods. And oh, Orias. Now, in terms of how you can be one, I don't know if I have that information. I recognize some of the people volunteering. I think I've had you before as a mod, either here or on TikTok. Okay, so let me go back to StreamYard. Okay, so we should have several more mods now. Oh, and Abby, one of my mods, already blocked the troll. Okay, good job. Or Deborah did. Okay, great. Yeah, so once you're a mod, I think you can go to the 3 dots next to the troll's name and put them in a timeout or block them. Thank you, mods. I think it's because I was going on a roll, right? Whenever I start, holding forth, then I don't see what's going on down there. But thanks for handling that. So I am going to take questions. I usually like to start by holding forth about whatever the topics of the day are. And then I take questions. Obviously, if you give a gift with your question, then it lights up for me and makes it easier for me to see. And you don't have to, though. We got Manchester, UK is here. Hello, sister England, sister UK. I would love to go to Manchester. I've only been to London. Here's a lovely gift from Ms. Jeannie Webble. Thank you for the very large gift. They say thank you. I appreciate you too. Thank you for being here. Yes, yay for moderators. Thank you, new mods. Don't mess with the besties. This is funny. Lemon Gelato's like we were all sending you telepathy to look at the the comments. I must have eventually got it because I suddenly was like, oh, I need to check the comments. I hope it didn't take me too long. When I'm on a roll, Toledo. Someone said they tried to gift and leave a note, but couldn't figure it out. So I don't know how to do that from your end because I'm used to being on this side. So if somebody wants to put in the comments how they can do that. Okay. All right, so I'm looking for questions now to see that things that I can tune into and answer in the moment. Hello, Canada. Good to have Sister Canada here. And if you hear any heavy breathing in the background, that's my friend's dog. I'm dog sitting, and she's sleeping and snoring right now. Thank you, mods. Thank you, mods. Okay, so we're talking about the current, what's going on right now. Okay, here's a question. Oh, let me see who this question is from. Jamie Maradas, 2966. This is a question we all have, right? Will the head clown be removed? I could talk about what I've seen in the future, but I'm going to tune in right now and see if there's anything new that I'm getting right now with this question. So yeah, the first thing I see as soon as I tune into that question is I see the giant hook. Back in the day when you were performing like at what was that famous Harlem theater? Um, there was a famous theater in Harlem, and it was a really tough crowd. And if they didn't like you, the audience would boo, and then they would have like a big hook. They would pull you off stage. What's the name of that theater? Anyway, I did an internship um, in Harlem when I was young, and I remember going to that theater. Um, so I do see him being removed. I think the real question a lot of us have is like, how and when, of course. And so what I've seen, well, before I talk about what I've seen, I want to see if there's anything else new besides yes. So what I keep seeing, what I keep being shown by my guides is that there are all these meetings happening behind the scenes. And like the overlords, what they call the overlords, the global power brokers have been like trying to negotiate behind the scenes, trying to figure out what's in their best interest. They don't care about us. They're not trying to make the world a better place. They're just trying to get richer and make sure they stay in control. But Head Clown was one of their vehicles for keeping things a certain way and making a lot of money, right? And what I've been shown is that he is kind of running out of his usefulness. He's starting to be not only less useful, but he's starting to harm the interests of the most powerful. And so they're only going to keep him in as long as he's beneficial. And so I do see that, again, I've shown again the people behind the scenes trying to figure out who can we put in next, right? Of course, they don't believe in democratic transfer of power. They don't believe in that. So they're trying to figure out who else can they put in his place? Like who's going to serve their interests and how can they get away with it, right? Now, of course, his health is quite poor as well. And so it's a waiting game with regard to that as well. Like how soon before, it gets the best of him. So I've been shown a lot of things in the past. So now I'm just kind of like tuning in to see, are those things still true, or is, are we dealing with a different reality now? So I do see him in his bed. So in the past, I've seen him in a hospital bed, and I've seen them kind of trying to keep it quiet and trying to act like he's fine. I do think what I've been shown again and again is that he's been in and out of that hospital bed. He's had several near misses. He's had several gone to the brink and come back moments where they've done emergency procedures and they've, given him certain medications, and they're kind of keep propping him back up with the best medical care that the world has to offer. And here's another question. When does he stop being the useful idiot? When they run out of embalming fluid? Yeah, well, that's why I'm really hopeful about what's going on in Persia. Apparently, Libby's in the chat. Someone said, "Oh, Libby, you guys should do a live together." I am open to it, Libby. So if you want to do a live together, that would be great. I used to do a lot of lives with other psychics in the early days on TikTok. I did lives almost every day, and I brought in a lot of other psychics, and that was really fun to have us all tune into the same question and give our different answers. And so I'm open to doing that. My guides got on my case though. They said, "Oh, you're spending too much time trying to organize psychics. We didn't tell you to do that." But I just love community. So I always like to reach out to other psychics on these platforms and say hello. Everyone's not friendly, but Libby is. And so anytime Libby wants to join me at Meister Tarot, if you don't follow her, please do. But somebody was just asking about this. And so I saw another question I want to address that it probably scrolled by now, so I can't find it. But it was someone saying, "Are we doomed no matter what?" No, we are not doomed. We are entering. On the precipice of a golden age. I know it's not obvious right now because we're going through the dark, the doom and gloom age first. Doom and gloom, then golden age. I know. It's because we're hard headed. This is the way we learn. We got to go through the doom and gloom to get to the gold. So I was shown 2030, and I was shown. I don't remember now everything I was shown, but I talked about it in an earlier post, maybe a couple months ago. But I was shown 2030, and I was shown all of these amazing things that were in place by 2030. And they said, the next 4 years are going to be nonstop progress. We're just not seeing it yet because we're in the destruction phase. But if you really can look at things from a certain perspective, you can see the progress. We have institutions that are being destroyed, and it might look like, well, that's not good. Like these institutions, but they're being destroyed so that something better can be built. Like right now, let's talk about right now in the Strait. I call it the Bermuda Strait because ships come in and they don't come out. They just get stuck there, right? The Strait of H, which I'm calling the Strait of Bermuda over there in Persia, right? This is completely changing global structure of power and the money, right? Petrodollar, right? It's changing our status as a country, and it's changing the relative statuses of different oil producing companies. And one of the things that is going to result from this current conflict is a rapid acceleration towards green energy, because a whole lot of countries right now are being held hostage to the current conflict. They can't get their oil, their gas, their fertilizer. Their economies are in trouble. Some people are already rationing. And so now this is putting pressure on governments to think about, maybe we shouldn't be so dependent on oil. Maybe that wasn't a good idea because it means we're dependent on these people who are crazy and just do whatever they want to do whenever they want to do it, thus affecting the price of the oil, thus affecting our entire economy. And so you are now going to see a whole lot of thinking and reflecting and change. We're going to see a whole lot of change and the rapid acceleration of green energy because of this current conflict. And so this is one of the things that I'm always calling upon people to do, because my guides are always telling me to do this, to look at the bigger picture and to try to look at the patterns. Don't just focus on bad news. Don't just focus on the bad thing. Yes, it's bad that we're at war. Yes, it's bad that people are losing their lives. That's bad. Yes, it's bad that that a lot of countries are suffering because of our clown. That's bad, right? But if we're going to get to the other side of this, if we're going to persist, right? If we're going to really bring about this new world that we're bringing about, we have to always be focused on, what is the world I'm bringing into existence? What is the world that's becoming possible because of what's happening today? This is what we always have to be thinking. We have to be visioning the future. And I know it's not easy. And I know that sometimes we're just going to be sad and we're going to be angry and we're going to check out. These are all necessary things that we have to do because we're humans and we have emotions. But when you can get to the other side of your anger or your despair, try to envision the world that you want to see and try to look for patterns of change that are going to bring us closer to the world we want to see. The current situation is not sustainable. Environmentalists have known this for years. I mean, I was a part of this movement called Transition years ago. I think it started in the UK, where people were forming these communities all over the world, these transition communities, and it was all about, how do we get away from being an oil-dependent society, right? How do we create bartering systems? How do we, right? There's been a lot of people who've been aware that this is not a sustainable system, but it wasn't enough people, right? Now, because of the crisis, a lot more people are starting to say, oh, maybe this is not sustainable. Maybe we don't need to keep mining, our mother's black blood. Maybe we don't need to keep digging into Mother Earth so that we can create, so that we can have this type of energy. Maybe we Maybe we could do something else. Right? All right, back to the comments. All right, in Canada, they have David Suzuki, been ringing the alarms for decades. We've got Winona LaDuke here, one of our Native American environmentalists. We have so many people, right? Yeah, transition towns. Anyone remember transition towns? I was so excited about that movement. It didn't really take off in a big enough way. Yeah, free energy. Did you think about free energy? Yeah, so I did talk about free energy. So Arias is saying, hallelujah, green energy, here we come. I'm curious to know how the need for green energy intersects with the possible free energy on its way. Would the need for even that kind decrease? Yes, good point, Arias. So I've talked before about free energy. So there is such a thing as free energy, and it's been suppressed. Every time an invention, there have been inventors, starting with Nikola Tesla, way back when, who had all of his papers and inventions confiscated by the government. We've had lots of people like that who have invented different types of green technology, which basically provided, free energy or continuous energy, and without the depletion of resources. And they've all been suppressed. And this is connected to the missing scientists right now. Now, I tuned into that question a couple of weeks ago, and I don't remember my exact answer, but I know that it has to do with free energy. I was also told that, when the space beings come, the star beings come, they are going to introduce us to free energy. And so, yeah, green energy is just our path to free energy, right? It's what we're going to do now until we get to the free energy part. Now, all we need to get free energy is to stop the people who are in power from suppressing this information and unaliving all the inventors. Like, that's all we need. It's not that great minds haven't already figured it out. They have. And we have a whole lot of child geniuses right now. So if you've been paying attention, there seems to be more child geniuses than there have been in the past. And maybe that's not true. We're just noticing them now. But I know I've seen a whole lot of child geniuses coming out of Africa, and just a whole lot of, also in the US, these little geniuses who are finishing college at age 11. And, I just saw this Latina girl, age 11, she's already finished her master's or something. Right? So there's a lot of brilliant minds being born right now. And that's because on a spiritual level, there are souls who are choosing to come in right now because they know we're about to enter this big transition that's going to be really fruitful place for creative minds, right? And so there are certain souls that are incarnating right now to be a part of that. Now, they kind of took the easy way out because they decided to incarnate, after the bad times. Like, if they're being born now, right, they're not going to be adults during this, which means they're not going to feel the brunt of this, what we're going through right now. They're going to be adults when things are better. Whereas you and I, we were the brave souls. No, we want to incarnate during the madness. We want to come in the middle of the chaos and the destruction. That's when I'm coming to Earth. That's what we signed up for, right? Brave, foolish souls that we are. But why do we do that? Because each one of us here knew that we had something to contribute. There's something that you in particular have to contribute to this moment. Otherwise, you would not have incarnated at this time. You could have incarnated 20 years from now or 20 years ago. You chose to be alive during this cataclysm for a reason. And so our job right now, each one of us, is to figure out, okay, what is I have to offer for persistence? What is my contribution? Why did I, as a soul, want to be living through this? You didn't come to suffer. You didn't come, oh, I just want to be. No, nobody chooses that. Nobody says, I want to incarnate and be a victim. No, you incarnate during difficult times or in a difficult body or in a difficult family or in a difficult racial group or sexuality, because you on a soul level have decided that there are certain things you can contribute by coming in that body at that time in that place. So there's something, right? There's something we all have to contribute, and you just got to figure out what it is. Okay, let me see what other questions we have. Mara Renee, not us signing up for the drama. Yes, we did. We were in line. There was an open call. We were in line. We were like, I want to I want to be a part of Earth drama. Can I please be in that production? Okay. Apparently Libby is in the comments talking. People are all talking to her. I don't get to join in on all the convos in the chat. I'm always a little jealous. Yeah, we got 600 in the live. Listen to I Am Eloa. Hit the like button. I think we forget to hit the like button when we're live, and it does really help. Oh, here's Libby. What's Libby saying? I chose this time to be a conspiracy theorist, in quotes, conspiracy theorist, and lead others down the rabbit hole. Chuckle. Yes, you did. I did too. We're in this together. I'm in a Woodstock state of mind. Marianne McCord is saying, no, she did not choose it. Absolutely not. She's resisting that theory. She does not accept that. Okay. That's what I've been taught. So that's all I can teach is what I've been taught. The reason I believe that, let me give you some context. You think I'm just pulling out of my hat. I read the Akashic records. So it's one of the gifts I have. And for many, many years, I worked with clients as a medical intuitive. And one of the things I also started to do was go to the Akashic records to help people to understand their pre-life agreements. And so the Akashic records it's in another realm. It's like a place, but it's not really a place. It's more like an energy. And it looks like a library, and you can go there and get information. And so I go there and I go to something I call the pre-life conference, where we sit on the cloud, and there's my client. They're sitting on the cloud, but it's not them the way they look now. It's them as a soul, like before they incarnate. So they're just like a ball of light. And they're sitting on a cloud across from their guide, their incarnation guide, who is a special spirit guide whose job is to help you make decisions about when and where to incarnate. And so they're having this conversation on the cloud. And what I get to do is I get to sit in and like listen like a spy. And I listen in on the meeting, and then I recount what happened in the meeting to my client, who is now in a physical body and doesn't remember this. And so I have sat in on a lot of these conversations, and that's why I believe that people choose the life that they choose, because I've seen it hundreds of times. Person sitting on the cloud, and they're discussing like, okay, what do you want to, they'll talk about their last life and what they learned. And then the guide will say, okay, are you ready to go back? What do you want to work on in the next lifetime? What do you want your purpose to be in this lifetime? Are there any contracts you want to set up with other souls? Is there any karma you want to work on? Like, do you want to balance out anything from a past life? Oh, in my last life, I was, kind of an abusive mother to my children. In this life, I think I want to know what it's like to have an abusive mother, or maybe I want to know what it's like to have a sister who's an abusive mother, so that I can, as a witness, maybe I influence her, right? And so you might choose some role that helps you address that same issue from a different perspective, right? So that's what we call karma. And sometimes you have a soul contract with somebody. Like, let's say there's another soul who wants to work on something in particular, and they say, hey, let's agree to be in the same family. I'll be your sibling, and we'll help each other with the purpose that we came to live, right? We'll help remind each other of that purpose. And then as they're making these decisions, they'll decide, okay, what's the best family for me to express this purpose in, or if they have lessons they want to learn, karma they want to work out, or contracts they want to have, they'll say, oh, I should pick that family. And they'll also like decide on, oh, should I be a girl, a boy, a non-binary? What should I be this time? Should I be gay, straight? Should I be in a poor family, a rich family? Should I be in a religious family? Should I be in a country that's at war? Like all of these things will go into the selection of the body. That's what I've seen as an Akashic Records reader. So that's why I say we chose this. All right. I see I'm missing a lot of questions, so let me get to those. From Southern Sass 3947, thank you for the gift. Thanks for everything you do and for confirming to me that I'm not crazy. We all feel a little crazy during these crazy times, don't we? It's hard not to. Living through crazy times. And if you're the person who sees the big picture in the middle of the crazy times, other people might see that as crazy, right? Call you a conspiracy theorist. I think I've missed some gifts that I want to acknowledge, but I'm not finding them. So if you gave me a gift, I do want to thank you. Is there a way for me to? I want to show it. Can one of my mods put the gifts on the screen for me? So Moon Beatification, I want to thank you for your gift. I'm trying to put it on the I'm trying to put you on the screen, but I haven't been able to yet. So give me a minute. It's going to show up sooner or later. Okay. And I'm also looking for new questions. Oh yeah. I also read Seth, all of Jane, not all of them, but several of her books years ago. Okay, I'm just looking at other questions. And oh, here we go. Moon Beatification. I just wanted to acknowledge you. Thank you for the gift. Yeah, so Mega Karen is like, I'm glad I incarnated when I did. Oh, so one of our mods is suggesting that you step out of the chat, hit like, and then step back in. I guess that's how you do it. Grounded Intuition with Linda says, this timeline, and as an empath, I do not recommend. Okay. Oh, I forgot. Someone's reminding me. You can buy me a coffee. See the little buy me a coffee thing? It's up there somewhere. You can scan that if you want to. Patricia says, I was high when I signed up for this. Oh, Libby. I was just about to say I don't answer personal questions, and I saw it was Libby. Gotta answer Libby's question. Why are my guides now yapping about Los Alamos, New Mexico? Let me see if I get anything on that. I did hear something recently about the Zorro Ranch and having a connection to Los Alamos. But I didn't get that intuitively. I read that somewhere. So let me see if I pick up anything intuitively about Los Alamos. So when I tune into it, what I see is all these planes flying down into Los Alamos. I think it's a base, right? Where they did nuclear testing. That's actually the reason my Aunt Mary Lou died. So I was at the beginning of the hour, I was talking about my favorite aunt growing up was in Alamogordo, New Mexico, and she died of cancer. She had like several kinds of cancer, and a lot of people who live in that area develop cancer. So I blame them for losing my aunt when she was only in her what 20s or 30s. She was very young. Must have been 30s because I was 18. So I'm seeing a lot of planes flying in there. So a whole lot of activity happening with, and I don't know much about Los Alamos. I just know that that's where they did some testing. And of course, that whole region is interesting, right? Because that's also where Area 51 is in New Mexico. New Mexico is an interesting place, right? For a lot of different reasons. So I'm just seeing a lot of planes going in. I'm just trying to see if am I getting anything else about it. I'm seeing a lot of people on headsets talking, so there's a lot of communication about Los Alamos. Um, I don't know what kind of military work happens there now. I know that it used to be where they did testing. Um, but just based on what I'm seeing, I would say I agree with you, Libby, that there's something happening there. So based on what I'm seeing, I would say there's like possibly some type of military planning that's happening there. Um, and see, when I see something like this, then what I do is I go look it up to try to make sense of it. Like I just don't know enough about Los Alamos to know what do they do there. Whatever they do there, they're doing it now. They're ramping up their activities right now. There's a lot of planes. There's a lot of communication. There's a lot of planning happening right now with Los Alamos. Now, we do know that Head Clown is trigger happy when it comes to Newtonian, right? And so maybe it's related to that. I'm trying to see if I'm getting a hit on that. I'm not getting a hit on that. I think it's related to security. So there's some real security concerns right now with regard to the UAPs and UFOs and free energy. So that's what I got with the scientists going missing, that there's all of this technology and knowledge that's about to be released. Like energetically, it's inevitable, right? We all know it, we can all feel it, right? That we're about to have disclosure. We're about to find out about free energy. We're about to find out about a lot of things that we haven't known about that have been suppressed. We're on that precipice, right? And so when I tune into Los Alamos, I'm also getting like there's a fear of like security. Like, oh, we don't want the people to know everything. We don't want the people to know what we're doing. There's some top secret project happening in Los Alamos that they don't want us to know about. Right. So I think they built the original bomb there, right? And they used to do testing. I know that where my aunt lived in LA, they did testing, like Newtonian testing underground in New Mexico. So there was ongoing research, but I'm getting that whatever they do there now, not back in the day, what they do now that the people don't know about because we're paying for it, but it's not in the books, right? It's like deep secret, top secret research. They're very worried about it coming out. So when I see all these people on headsets, I feel this sense of security, like, oh, there's about to be a breach. There's about to be a leak. This is about to get out. People are about to know about this. So, Libby, I wish you were here. Is there a way for me to add you? Do you want to join the live? Can I do that? Can I invite you? I'm going to invite you. You probably don't. I don't even know if you want it. I know I didn't ask you, but I'm just going to try it because I've never done it. I don't know what this means. I'm going to try this. There's something that allows me to invite someone. So let me see if I can invite you, Libby. And of course, if you're not interested, you just can say no. I don't know how to do it. Shoot. Yeah, I don't know how to do it. I've never done it on this particular platform. I'm on StreamYard, and hold on, I'm gonna keep pushing buttons. All right. Yeah. I don't know how to put you up here with me because I would love to hear what you have to say about what I just said. Like, what are you getting? But I don't know how to do it. But let's plan it. If you have, I don't even know if that's something you want to do, but let's plan it. She doesn't like lives, Stephanie says. She doesn't like lives. Okay, so never mind. So maybe it's just as well I don't know how to do it. Maybe you put a comment in the chat and then someone can share it with me. Okay, here's somebody with some information. Julie W. My dad used to work as an aerospace engineer at Los Alamos. He worked on top secret rockets. That was a long time ago. Yeah, so they're working on something top secret and it's about to come out. Oh, okay. So Stephen Burns, I sometimes watch him. He's a like astrogeologist, I think. Um, According to Ingrid Arnold, he suspects that was what was going on with quakes so close to Area 51 yesterday, and they're still going off. Oh, okay. It's always nice when more than one person is tuning in and getting the same thing. I mean, Libby's probably getting the same thing. Um, oh, someone said everything at Los Alamos is top secret. Well, there you go. I didn't know that, but so maybe I'm not saying anything. But that's what I picked up was like this really top secret research is about to be leaked, and they are very concerned about that. There's a lot of security trying to like fix it. They're trying to fix it. It's too late. Okay, here's another theory from somebody that it's Nevada is Area 51, New Mexico. Oh, thanks for the correction. I said Area 51, but you said that's Nevada. Roswell is New Mexico. That's what I was thinking of, Roswell. And Los Alamos is the nuclear lab where they're testing to create fusion. Okay, thanks for that information, Renee Hopka. Got to keep our facts straight. Yes, see, I know it as this, right? The birthplace of that bomb. That's what I know it as. Oh, someone said move on. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. I don't know if they're talking about this. Now Libby's going to be like, I'm not going to her live. She might try to pull me up on stage. You always have the choice to say no. Even if I had figured it out, maybe you just don't accept. Okay, I'm looking for other questions. We have 667 people in the room. I am taking questions, political questions that I can tune into and answer in the moment. So if you're new to my channel, the way I usually work is I sit down, I meditate, I go into a trance, I talk to my guides, and they give me information, and then I turn that into stories or, comedy series, whatever, and I make posts about it, right? But what I'm doing now is instead of going all the way into a trance, I'm just tuning in intuitively, like, using my third eye. I'm just using clairvoyance to tap in. And it's just a different way to work. So I'm a psychic, but I'm also a medium. I'm also a mystic. I'm a medical intuitive. I'm a healer. I'm a precog. So I do a lot of different work. They're all a little different. And so right now, I just decided a couple of weeks ago that it was time to start doing live intuitive questions. Okay. I'm trying to pick I just saw like 3 questions go by. Is this an only chat? No, it's not. Okay, we got a new member. Thank you for joining, Carla. Okay, now I'm trying to find the question I saw. Okay, here's a question from Lantern Hill Morgan 3330. Okay, so yeah, the question of women keeping the ability to put in tickets. So I'm gonna do my disclaimer again. This is for entertainment purposes only. So the act of saving, if you know what I mean, failed. The act of saving failed. And that act was going to limit women's ability to put in tickets. It failed. And they worked so hard at it. They worked so hard to try to get that through. They did all kinds of machinations to try to force it through, attaching it to other bills, making it a condition of, I think, the shutdown, just different things they tried to do, and they failed. And, yes, it's a part of their agenda. So if you look at the 25-year agenda, right, that the Teal Clown and the Heritage group wrote, that's one of their agenda items, right? They want to take all the rights away from women. They want to turn us into, sex slaves and house slaves and baby incubators, right? That's a part of their agenda, right? But we don't have to worry about that. You know why? Because at the same time, not coincidentally, at the same time that that the clowns have that agenda of strengthening patriarchy and removing all the rights from certain genders, because they don't just remove them from women, but also non-binaries, right? And all the queers and all the trans folks, right? Transformers. So they have this vision of removing rights from these groups. But at the same time that they have that vision, we are stronger than we've ever been. And the consciousness of women in particular is rising now like it hasn't in a long, long time. We have the 4B movement that started in Korea, moved to Europe, is now alive and well in the United States. And the 4B movement is about no sex with men, no dating men, no marrying men, no babies with men. And we've seen the birth rate go down. It's already down in the US. It's down in Europe. It's down in South Korea. And I think it's down in Japan. There's a number of places throughout the world where the birth rate is down because women are refusing, right, to have children. And they were even on Fox News this week saying how tragic it is that teenage girls aren't having babies like they used to. I mean, these are the PDFs, right? These are PDFs. They were PDFery, so they, of course, want children to have children because that's a part of their belief system that, this is what you do to children. And so they were actually lamenting on TV about the fact that children aren't having children, and that's why the birth rate's down. And so that's another sign of our progress is that even the people who haven't chosen, right? Because a lot of these teens who were getting pregnant, they didn't choose that, right? A lot of them were the victims of different forms of SA or coercion or trickery, or were being denied access to birth control, right? And so these are like very vulnerable populations of girls, and they used to be forced to give birth, and that's not happening as much as it was because people now have access to reproductive services, or they did, and in some places they still do, and so that has affected the birth rate. But it's also the fact that in general women are saying no. And that's why this whole loneliness of menfolk epidemic is supposed to exist. It's because dudes can't get dates, and they can't get dates because women have become more discerning, and have raised their standards, and they're expecting more from their relationships, and they're not willing to sacrifice their careers or their bodies the way they have to because they didn't have options. Women have options now. And so we are seeing a really big rise in female consciousness and autonomy and sovereignty. And so it's no coincidence that at the same time, these Magatonians are trying to reinstitute the Stone Age gender relations. Caveman, have club, will rule, right? They're trying to bring back the caveman gender roles. And it's not going to work. It's not going to work because patriarchy relies upon the cooperation of women who are so oppressed that they don't think there are any other options. And we've now surpassed that moment. Women now have other options, and women, at least in certain places, women have other options. And certainly in this country, women have other options, and women are not in a situation where marriage is their only option. right? And that was the case many years ago. You know, like for my grandma, my mother's generation, that was very much the case, that they didn't have options because they weren't allowed to have checking accounts or rent an apartment on their own or work at a lot of places or, um, I say bank, they can have a bank account for their paycheck, like there were just so many, they couldn't have a credit card. Um, they didn't have options, right? And we do. And um, things are really changing. Okay, here's a question a lot of people have asked. And there's a lot of good questions in the chat. I am trying to get to them, but there's a lot of them. So let me try to get to them as fast as I can. But there's a lot of them. What do your guides? So One Woman, One Nation. What do your guides say about the post Red Hat era? What do we do with them? I don't think any Red Hats are safe people. This is a question that's really similar to other questions that we often get when oppressed people are rising up against their oppressors. We'll often get a question about, oh, but what's going to happen to the slave owners? They're going to lose all their money, or what's going to happen to the men when nobody will marry them? Poor things. There are good men out there, right? Like this is, I know I'm making fun of it, but I'm trying to make a point. We want to get away from this focus on the oppressors, right? Let's focus on freeing the oppressed. Let's not focus on what's going to happen to the oppressors and aren't they going to feel bad, right? So we have to remember that the Red Hats are oppressors. They chose the oppression of others as their platform. That's what they chose. They were very clear. Head Clown was very clear in his campaign. In both campaigns, he was very explicit in his racism, his misogyny, his homophobia, his anti-immigrant. He was so clear. I'm laughing because there are people down who are going to say, well, I didn't know. Yeah, you knew, because he said it very plainly. He wasn't subtle. He was not a politician. Dude is not a politician. Not charming, not subtle. There's no reading between the lines with him. He was very, very, very clear. He was going to go after and oppress certain communities. That's what his platform was. And that's what he has done. And so these former Magatonians, these are like former slave owners, right? These are like former patriarchs, right? Misogynists. They're the oppressors. And it's great if they're going through an evolution and they're deciding, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done all those terrible things for so long. This is great, but we don't owe them anything, right? Just like the slave owners don't deserve like a special, sit down and talk to the slave owners because I know they're feeling really bad about what they did, all the African people they killed and raped and tortured. Like, oh, I bet they feel really bad about that. And now they lost their farm. No. Our focus cannot be there. It may sound harsh, but I see it as part of a bigger pattern, right? Because I see it with women. When women start speaking up about oppression, there are always people saying, oh, not all men, or what about the men, the good men? That's a way of shifting focus away from the people who are rising up, right? The oppressed people are rising up. Our focus is not on the oppressor, okay? So, and I know this is hard for people because a lot of people, palm colored people, have members of their family who are ex-Magatonians. Okay. But it's not just them. There are some people of color who also have. Certainly a whole lot of Asians have Magatonian relatives. And there was also a sizable Hispanic population that was Magatonian. And so there are a lot of people with family members who were in that cult. And you may be like, oh, how do I help them? And that's beautiful if you want to help them. I'm just saying this can't be the focus of the movement. We can't be bogged down and focused on making sure they're okay, right? They're all going to benefit. So the persistence benefits everybody. That's the difference. Magatonia was trying to benefit a certain group of people and harm a whole lot of other people. Those of us who are envisioning a new world, our vision of the future, they're all going to benefit. So all those ex-Magatonians, they are all going to benefit. They're all going to have the good, the free energy or the green energy. They're all going to have the lower food prices. They're all going to have, less of their children being victimized by the bad traffic ring. They're all going to benefit, right? And so just focus on that. Let's bring about a new world and trust that everyone's going to benefit from that. But let's not get bogged down in doing therapy on the people who signed up to harm others, right? Who were gung-ho about, I'm okay with lots of people suffering if I think I might benefit. Those are not the people we need to focus on right now. And sometimes silence is the best way. Now that's a native, so it's cultural. In the native community, when we don't approve of something, we're quiet. If we don't approve of somebody, we don't talk to them. If someone says something that we don't agree with, we don't respond. And the silence of the group is condemnation. And everybody understands that. Exile was a big part of our heritage. We don't do it so much now, but it's like if somebody was harming the group, you're like, okay, you can't be a part of the group anymore. You go over there. I happen to think that's a useful way to deal with people who are invested in harming others, is to exile them. And so some of you probably already have exiled some of your Magatonian family members. I think exile can be very healing for people. It gives them time to reflect on their actions and give them time to reassess. And so they may have to be in exile for a while they reflect. And then we're going to focus on the new world we're bringing into existence, which is going to help everybody. Someone is asking about Mystic Hummingbird. He destroyed an indigenous heritage site. I don't know about that particular one, but I can tell you that Head Clown for many, many years has been very hostile to the Native Americans. He has targeted a number of groups over the years. There's a tribe that I worked for a while that he removed their status while he was in office, and it was very harmful to them. And he did that. He also tried to take away the rights of the Miccosukee tribe, which I'm related to. And he goes after tribes that have power, tribes that have casinos, tribes that have money, tribes that have a lot of land. He's extremely racist against Native Americans. He's racist against a lot of groups, let's be honest. But he does have a track record of going after tribes, especially those that are powerful or that have money, because he's very threatened by excellence when it's colored, right? He's threatened by Black excellence. That's why he fired 400,000 Black women out of federal service, were removed from federal service. That's one of the first things he did. He's removing all of the Black generals, all of the women. He's very threatened by excellence when it is not in a palm-colored male body. And that's how people are when they're inferior, right? When you're a superior person or just an average person, if you're, I shouldn't say, you're like a high achieving person, you're not threatened by other high achieving people, right? But when you're an inferior person, you don't have the same abilities, skills, gifts, intelligence, achievements. That insecurity can make somebody very challenged by people who are successful. And so that's one of the things that Head Clown is very threatened by. He's threatened by Native Americans who have money or power, and he's threatened by Black women who have any kind of status. That's why he hates Obama so much, right? Because the man's so brilliant and so charming and so successful. He hates that. It goes against his, YT supremacist mythology. Yeah. Someone just pointed out, the casinos. He's really, really upset about the casinos because he couldn't compete with the Native American casinos on the East Coast. He tried to have one. He wasn't as successful, and he's been mad ever since. So he's been specifically going after tribes that have casinos. Um, okay. So I'm just looking for other questions. So we have 747 people in the chat. Thanks for being here. If you want to send me a coffee or send me a gift, and thank you to everyone who has already done it. Oh, hey, someone bought my book, Ethical Psychic. I always forget to promote my books, but one of my books is Ethical Psychic. Let me just say something about that. I would really appreciate reviews. I always forget to tell people to review, so I'm trying to remember to say that. Because the way book sales work is the more reviews you have, the more like the algorithms will promote the book to new readers. So like on Goodreads, if you review my book, or on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, wherever you get your books, if you put a review, then when people are on there shopping, the algorithm will more likely show them my book, and then more people will read the book. And more people that read the book, the more ethical psychics and healers we will have, right? So if you've read the book and you want to review it, I'd appreciate it. And thank you for buying the book, Nezra Moon. Someone's talking about that native way, Mama. I don't know if your grandmother was native. Okay, so here's One Woman, One Nation, who's Lakota, living in South Dakota. We're a louder nation. Yes, we banned Christy Nillen before she went to DC. So banning people is another method, like exile, right? Okay, I'm just looking for other questions to answer. So if you're just tuning in, what I've been doing is tuning in intuitively to questions that people are asking about your political situation. Oh, someone said when I flap my hands, my mic cuts out. That's weird. I've never heard that before. My mic's usually pretty good. Okay, here we go. Thank you, Mama T447, for your gift. Love your guts. My grandma was native. Yeah, you just said that about your grandma. Yeah, that's why. Oh, okay. Oh, someone's Orias is telling me that my book is also on the library app, the audio version. Yeah, so my book comes in paperback, audio, and digital. That book. My Sovereign Wisdom book only comes in hardback and paper. It doesn't have audio because it's an academic book, and academic publishers aren't that, they're not that savvy. Okay, here's a question I think probably a lot of people. Oh, wait, before I answer your question, you can review it on Goodreads, Bad Kitty. Even if you buy it on eBay, you can review it on Goodreads. Anyone can review my book on Goodreads. That's an app for readers. And yeah. Okay, sweet song. Are you still getting vibes around apple blossom time? So for those who don't know, a while ago, maybe in February, my guides said that they saw Head Clan leaving. Well, they didn't. No, that's not what they said. See, that's the thing about when you get a vision, you got to give it exactly when you get it. We tend to interpret it. So what I actually got was that there was going to be a major change at the House of White that was going to be just hugely impactful during apple blossom season. And when I first got it, I was thinking cherry blossom because that's what DC is known for, is the cherry blossom, right? Because I lived in DC. Um, but no, I went and listened to it because I record when I get when I talk to my clients, I record it and then I can transcribe it. And I looked at the transcription and I said apple blossom. So I looked up apple blossoms and it said that they bloom in April and May in DC. So I interpreted that to mean that probably he's going to be gone. That's not what they said. They said something really big at the House of White was going to happen that was going to change everything. What else could it be, right? So something big is happening soon. So someone's asking me to tune back into that and see if that's changed. So I'm just going to tune into it and see if I get anything different. So this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing an image I was shown a long time, not a long, maybe 6 months ago. It's hard to remember, in spirit time. But in earlier vision, I was shown all of these people storming the House of White, like with the pitchforks and tiki torches. And so that's kind of a Magatonian thing, right? That's like a J6 thing, where those people, they have a lot of guns, they're kind of more into throwing violets. And they got the torches and the pitchforks, right? That's kind of their thing. So when I see that symbology, I know that refers to that group of people. And what I was shown quite a while ago was that group of people was going to storm the House of White. But then I also had a vision of the resistance joining up with the disenchanted ex-Magatonians and all storming the House of White together. And I don't know if together is an appropriate word because I don't know that they didn't really coordinate. Like they're not really working together, but it's more like they're both equally bad. So there's a way in which their movements come together without even trying because of anger. Now that vision I saw of the pitchforks and the tiki torches, they were upset. That particular vision was them upset about head clown disappearing from the scene and no explanation being given about whether or not he was still among the living, whether or not he left town, what happened. There was a lot of questions about where's Waldo. So I'm referring back to that vision because I'm seeing the same image of the people surrounding the House of White. So to me, that's a symbol of like public outrage or public demands for answers happening very soon. So when I tune into the apple blossoms, that's what I get is these kind of crowds of people demanding. Doggy's up. You okay? Demanding answers. So I'm also seeing something else, which is not as dramatic. I'm seeing a kind of slow, steady progress. So this is like the organizers, the people who have been kind of slowly and methodically, some of these are lawmakers, slowly and methodically chipping away at the circus over time. I also see them kind of working kind of like day and night, chipping away. I think that's what's going on right now. It's like they're just chipping away. And so that also feels like that's happening now while the apple blossoms are blooming. It's that slow, methodical. So and this kind of matches what I've been shown before, is that there's several different things happening at the same time. There are the overlords in the background who are renegotiating power, trying to decide whether or not Head Clown is still serving their interests or whether they need to get rid of him. That's happening. So those people are corporate tech bros, corporate CEOs. Some of them are political players on the world stage. That's happening. At the same time, we have this ex-Magatonia kind of hysteria developing of like, this is not what I wanted. This is, I'm not happy. This isn't working out for me, right? Kind of angst. And then at the same time, we have the persistence of this like constant, persistent struggle that's been going on since November of 2024 of people doing everything they can to stop the circus. And then we have the lawmakers who are chipping away. And one of the things that's coming up right now as I tune into that is the terms of mid again. And so I am seeing, again, to elect the governor of Louisiana, right, canceling the terms of mid. I see that domino effect, right? So the redrawing of the maps, the gutting of the Voting Rights Act. This is the battle that's going on between the blue and red hats of like, this powered battle, this power struggle. And it's not going to work out for the red hats because really they didn't think things through, and they didn't think about the consequences of their actions. They just thought they were going to be able to just do what they want and get away with various cheating scenarios. But that canceling of the term of mid by the Louisiana governor is just one domino. It's going to happen in other places. And recall one of the things my guide said that's very unpopular. One of the things I've said that's very unpopular, and I hope I'm wrong, but the guide told me there will be no terms of mid. They told me something that happened before that, and that people should not just be sitting back and waiting for the terms of mid to fix everything, because that's not going to happen. So of course they're doing everything they can right now, the circus, to try to cheat those terms of mid, right? So they're redrawing maps. They were trying to get voter data so they can figure out new ways to finagle, trying to take a bunch of people off the roll, right? They're trying to deport a bunch of people who are legal residents who aren't really voting. Like, let's just deport them, even if they're legal, and they can't vote. Like, they're doing all these things. They were trying to get women, married women to lose they're trying to get trans people to lose the vote, right? Because of the gender on the ID issue. So they had all these things in place that they're trying to do, because they know if the terms of mid happen, they're all out of there. And then a lot of what they've done is going to be reversed. A lot of them are going to go to jail because they are criminals. And the only reason they're not going to jail now is because the circus is protecting all the criminal behavior. So they can't let that happen, right? So they're trying all this stuff, right? All these machinations. But just now I saw that that's going to lead to, right now we're things are devolving into state versus state, right? So like my state, California, we're now creating our own relationships with other countries. Like we have our own trade agreements now with other countries. Like we're a state, like we're our own country, right? We've created environmental pacts, we've created trade alliances. We're setting up our own DHS over here. Like we're setting up our own, like we're replacing, the federal programs that are being destroyed are being replaced by state programs. And that's happening in New York, happening in blue states. And so what we're seeing, like when I was tuning into this question, I'm seeing also that what's happening right now during this April, May, as the blossoms are coming onto the apple trees, we're going to see more and more of this, where states are saying, nope, not doing that here. And so, we have been a federal, what's it called? We're a republic, right? We've been a republic for a long time. We have states that have their own laws and governors, but then we also have a federal unity, and we have certain federal laws, right? And that's changing. That's changing right now. And some of that's been based on civility. And see, civility is out the window. So this is what happens. Red hats thought, oh, we can just throw out civility. We can throw out norms. We can throw out law and order. We can throw out separation of powers. But what they didn't count on was that at some point, everybody was going to do that, right? And that's the thing about cheating. Cheating only works if you're the only one cheating, right? If I'm playing a game everyone's following the rules and I'm cheating, I can win. But if everybody's cheating, there's no telling who's going to win. Who's the best cheater, right? And that's where we're at. We're at this point where people are starting, states, governors, blue hat lawmakers are starting to say, well, if they're not going to follow the rules, neither am I, right? And that opens up a lot of possibilities. That's the nature of anarchy, right? Anarchy opens up a lot of unforeseen possibilities. It's hard to predict what will happen when people don't follow the rules, right? And so that's what we're going to see. That's what I was just showing, that the states are going to start becoming more autonomous and they're going to stop participating in certain things. And as a way to fight against this federal overreach and this corruption and this lawlessness at the circus. So that's my answer to that question. Okay. Oh, Rossi's here in the house. Another one of my mods. Thank you, Rossi. Oxford Cat, thank you for being a mod. Oh, of course, this is a question a lot of people have. From Ermrod12. Junior guides also say that the head clown's dinner attack was all an act and a setup. I did tune into it when it happened, and I was a little confused at first because I did feel sincerity coming from the suspect. But I also felt that it was a staged production, right? That it was a stage. No one was ever in danger. I don't even think there were anybody actually shot. I think they were trying to say someone was shot, and then they said, well, actually he wasn't. And then they said, oh, he had a protective thing on it. He's okay. And there were a lot of stories. I don't think there was ever any actual risk to anybody's life. That's what I picked up. That was, a stage production. And they are getting better at their stage productions, right? Because for the first time this time, they picked a person of color to be their suspect, right? In the past, they kept having like Magatonian guys, palm-colored guys. It was like so obvious. All you had to do was research them. What's interesting about what people are finding out about this suspect is that he apparently has ties to Couchman, and also It's Not Real. And he was a really highly educated scientist and computer engineer, computer scientist, and teacher of the year. So he doesn't fit the profile, right? So if you know anything about the profile of gunmen, these kind of people, assassinators, serial killers, the people that do these random shootouts, it's one group of people, right, that does this. It tends to be a younger, palm-colored male who's doesn't have any friends, is not very accomplished. They usually have trouble with women. Be, um, living to the far right of everything. This is the profile. So if you're in the FBI, they profile. This is how they catch criminals, because they have a profile of who commits a particular crime. And this guy doesn't fit the profile in any way, shape, or form. You just don't have educated Black males committing these kind of crimes. You just don't. You just don't. And so that's very suspicious, right? So I like to combine a mixture of logic, facts, and also intuition. So intuitively, I got, yes, stage production. But then I was really curious about this guy because he doesn't fit the profile of even someone they could convince to do this. And so it kind of felt similar to that kid that they're trying to blame for Chuck E. Cheese's unaliving. Like, that kid was tricked, right? He wasn't actually in on it. He was just um, like someone that they picked as somebody that they could pin it on, right? Um, and so it feels like that. It feels like some kind of trickery was involved to get this person, like they hired him kind of thing to do a job. And, but there was also, I think, they didn't disclose really the whole story to him. Um, but I do feel like the stories coming out, like you're not going to have any verified stories. So just like this, the same was true with, I forget his name, the young kid, the college kid who was supposed to have been the lone gunman at the Chuckle Cheese event. Um, there ended up being no reports, like no interviews, right? There were no like news stories of anybody there. There were no interviews with any of his friends or family that were published. Um, right? There was absolutely no evidence, public facing evidence that this kid was involved the way they said he was. And you're going to find the same thing is true, I think, with this suspect, that like they had a story oh, that his family tried to alert somebody about the dangers of this of this guy. Yeah, they're not going to have any interviews though. They're not going to have any actual. In the past, they did. So remember that prior to the circus coming to town, whenever there was any kind of incident, you would see on the news interviews with the neighbor, with the family members, with the there would actually be investigative journalism about the suspect, and you would hear people talking about that. You would have videos and different things, right? And we're not going to see that because yeah, it's not what they're saying it is. Yeah, his name was, the other guy was named Tyler. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, the kid that supposedly did the other thing. And here's someone saying, yeah, my Dr. Domenico, my parents lived near where that young man lived from July 2024, and there was literally no information. There's no way that happens, Like I remember that gunman who, it was at a tech university. I forget the name of it. There was a tech, several years ago, there was this young gunman who killed all women at this university. And they interviewed a bunch of people. And I remember because there was a famous professor, I think it was Gwendolyn Brooks. She was a famous Black poet. And she said in an interview, I tried to alert the university about this kid because I could tell he was disturbed. He was a misogynist, and he had said some disturbing things in my class. And I tried to let them know, listen, I think this kid is dangerous. And they didn't do anything about it because he was palm colored and he was a male. And he ended up being one of those school shooters, and he killed only women because he was a misogynist. He hated women. Women wouldn't date him. He had a lot of, angst about that. And that's what normally happens, is that there are people who are at the school or in the neighborhood, or friends or family, who get interviewed, and they all have something to say about that person. We haven't seen that with these last few so-called gunmen. Oh, it was Nikki. See, I called her Gwendolyn Brooks. These are two of my favorite poets. Was it Nikki Giovanni? It was Nikki Giovanni, not Gwendolyn Brooks, at Virginia Tech. Yeah. She came out and said, hey, I tried to go to the university, but no one listened to me. Okay, here's another question that I think a lot of people have from Mishikai. I keep feeling the 3W is off the menu, even though it looks otherwise. What do you see? So I have gotten that from the beginning too, that that's not on the menu, but I'll tune in right now and see if there's any new information. So yes, I've repeatedly gotten that it's not on the menu. And let me just say what I've gotten already before I tune in again. What I got before was, the situation now is very different from the other WWs. In the other WWs, we had alliances, large numbers of countries that then formed alliances and fought other countries, and there were many, many theaters, and it was a global, it was like it wasn't completely global, but it was like throughout much of Europe and Asia was fighting at the same time, and the Pacific Island, right? It was a lot of areas that were fighting. And people formed all these alliances. And what I said when the first conflict was about to start and people were saying, oh no, WW, I said, no, it's not going to happen, because what my guides are saying is that people are not going to join with us. We're not going to have the allied forces against the, Axis, because we're not going to be able to form that alliance. That's what my guide said. And we see that today. It's the case. Nobody's joining with us, or almost nobody. There's a couple, like AUE. Am I saying it right? The country that has Dubai. They did just leave OPEC. So they ostensibly are on our side, right? But very few. I think the UK is kind of barely supporting us. Nobody's willing to go to the Gulf. Nobody's willing to send ships. Many, many countries in Europe are saying you can't use our bases. You can't fly over. Even Switzerland was like, yeah, we're usually neutral, but not right now. You can't fly over our airspace. Even the GCC countries that have always been our allies are now saying, we want everybody out of our country. We don't want any bases. We don't want to be a part of this. You're not protecting us. So I feel like my guides have been correct about that, because you cannot have a WW without allies. We can't fight the world. And of course, Head Clown thinks he can. And that's not going very well for us. We are not winning, because the only reason we've been successful in the past is because of our allies. We were able to have bases all over the world where we would have equipment and we could just send rockets, right? We had lots of other people who would fight with us. We had people who would just facilitate our conflicts, right? We don't have that now. We don't have that now. For the first time, we don't have that. And that's what my guides predicted. They said, we aren't going to have groups of countries coming together to fight groups of countries. So we're not going to have a WW. But let me tune in and see what else is new. Anything new? All right, WW, question of WW. Okay, so I'm tuning in clairvoyantly first, just because for me, that's the most expedient way to get information. So I'm seeing some planes on runways, and I'm just trying to figure out where we are. Yeah, so there's a shortage of equipment. There's a shortage of fuel. So I'm seeing like this plane, Peter, going, what's the word? Going really slow down the runway, like it's running out of gas. And it's like the only plane. So the way I interpret that symbol is, I'll just give you this type of work, right? As a clairvoyant, is you get a symbol, a visual symbol, and then you have to interpret it. So the way I interpret that is, yeah, we can't have a WW because we don't have the equipment, we don't have the money, and we don't have the fuel. So our planes literally can't fly, and we don't have enough planes. We also don't have enough personnel. And I was shown this, I think I said this in last week's live, maybe live before, that the reason the soldiers and the sailors are starving on the ships, right? They're sending pictures home to their family of what they're being fed. And they're talking about how much weight they're losing because they're not being fed. The military is not feeding our enlisted men and women. And when I tuned into that, what I got was they have supply chain issues. They have supply chain issues. It's not they don't have money for food. At least that's not what I was shown. They don't know how to supply the ships. This whole blockade, strait, triangle situation over there is making it very difficult for them to keep the people supplied, and so they don't have enough food. This is just another example of that. So what I'm being shown right now is not only do we not have the allies for a WW, we don't have the logistics. We lack the logistics, even for the little bit of thing that we're doing, whatever. What I also was shown was that, they tried to send all of these sailors and soldiers to Persia. with the intent of having like some type of surprise attack offensive, but it has failed. They've been unable to do it because um, they don't have any support from other countries. They don't have the ability to resupply their, and logistically, they're just not able to do it. And so this is what I'm seeing again today. There's a logistical issue. Um, WWs are fought by leagues of nations. We don't have a league. There's no league. We just got one crazy dude trying to fight by himself with no skills. Um, okay, there's some questions. Dr. Domenico, thank you for the gift. I appreciate it. Hi, Dr. Vest. Thank you for these weekly chats. Can you provide advice for those of us who are on the path to discovering our mediumship abilities and training independently on mastering the craft? You know, I have a number of classes on my website, but I have not yet published my mediumship class. I used to teach it in person, so I need to get on that because I keep getting this question. But let me just give you a couple of bits of advice. I do recommend my book, The Ethical Psychic, in terms of learning how to set up sacred space to keep yourself safe. And if you don't want to read my book, find another book on psychic protection. Like I used to recommend them by name. I recommend them in my courses, but I can't think of it right now. But there's a couple of good books out there. Dion Ford, very old book on psychic protection. And then Robert Bruce, or is it Bryce? Sometimes I get that mixed up. But he's written a number of books on energy work. He has a good book on psychic protection as well. So you want to start there in terms of developing your mediumship. You want to start with learning how to keep yourself safe, setting up your sacred space so that you're not attracting the wrong kind of spirits. That's what you want to start with in terms of developing your mediumship. And then you want to get a teacher. You want to take a class. You want to get a teacher. I don't think you want to do this on your own. I don't recommend that. I was born with gifts, for as long as I can remember. As a child, I saw spirits in the hospital when I was born. I saw, I used to see the future when I was a kid. I could feel people's feelings. I had a lot of gifts when I was a kid. But having gifts and being able to use them in a safe and reliable manner in order to help others are two different things. I did a lot of training, and I highly recommend you get training. There's lots of teachers out there. If you don't feel a good vibe with a teacher, of course, don't work with them. And you may have to shop around to get the right teacher, but you should definitely work with a teacher. And then also there are books like the ones I recommend that you can read. Another thing you can do is you can read biographies by mediums. So if you read, I found that very helpful when I was first starting to get training. I found it very helpful to read like Alison Dubois' biography, or Sonia Choquette's autobiography, or John Edwards or John Holland's autobiography, where they talk about what it was like for them to develop as a medium. I found that very helpful. Okay. Here's another question from Oxford Cat. Thank you for your gift. Can you ask your guides about the outcome of the BB trial in It's Not Real? Thank you. So is there a trial going on right now? I don't know about that. I mean, I know that there's a warrant out for his arrest by the International Criminal Court, but I'm not up to date on this trial. So let me tune in. So the interesting thing that I'm getting about BB is I'm getting the flag. I'm getting the blue and white flag. And his argument that some people believe, a certain percentage of the population believes, that he is kind of synonymous with the flag, and that the flag is kind of conflated his project of colonialism, of expanding and taking more and more land from other people. They've equated that with their existence with their flag. So like they're showing me planting the flag. So that's a colonialist thing. Like the US, everywhere we go, we like plant the flag, right? That's like our symbol. What is it? Wasn't the famous statue Iwo Jima, like we planted the flag, like this is our territory now, right? That's a symbol of taking control of territory that doesn't belong to you, right? But now you say it belongs to me now. And so the first thing I'm getting is that there are a certain percentage of people who equate him with that project of expansion, and they see that project of expansion as necessary to the sovereignty of it's not real. And so, and this is coming up. Why? That's his defense. That's his whole defense. Um, so I'm seeing him like in a court. I'm seeing the judge with the gavel, and this is his whole defense. Um, he's saying, if you take me out, you're taking out. It's not real. We're like he's equating himself with the if he dies or if he's taken out in any way, removed, they're going to remove their ability to be a sovereign nation. That's his argument. Okay. And so I'm seeing that in the court that he makes this argument. But you're asking how does it end, right? How does it what happens, I guess. I don't even know about this case though. I'm looking at this totally blind. So there's some kind of like negotiation happening over there where you have a certain percentage of the population who thinks that this is the case, that this is the only way, that the BB way is the only way, that colonialism and conquest and expansion is the only way to preserve the identity of the state. And there are these kind of debates happening now in a way that they've never happened before. There's a way in which, like, his position used to be the majority position. Like, this used to be kind of something people didn't think about. It was just a given. Like, oh yeah, well, in order for us to exist, we have to keep, colonizing other lands, and it's the only way we can exist. And so they supported what he was doing because that was kind of just like the air they breathed. That was just the status quo, the way we think. And that's changing now. And there's a large percentage of the population that's turning against that belief. And they're saying, is there another way? Is there another way? And the problem is they have to make a convincing case that it's possible for them to be a state without engaging in conquest, colonialism, and genocide. Like they have to make that case. That's what I'm seeing, kind of this argumentation and negotiation happening between these two sides. And I don't see him long for this world, like head clown. Also, I don't, so this is part of this. There's a timer. There's a limited amount of time that he has, just like head clown. So they have a limited amount of time to figure this out. And if they don't figure it out, it will be figured out for them with his demise. So that's what I'm getting. I don't know if I answered your whole question, but I just got to give what I get, right? All right, we're getting close to 2 hours, so I am going to probably only answer a couple more questions. Yeah, it's true. They're both trying to stay out of jail. Bad kitty. I agree with Bad Kitty. So I've got 722 people in here. Thank you for being here. Thank you to everybody for your questions, for your comments, for your likes. Thank you for your coffees that you're buying me and your gifts. Oh, we got Norway in the house. Sister Norway, thanks for being here. I have a connection to Norway. My great grandmother was from Norway. She was a Sami, which is indigenous Norwegian. Yeah, so one of the things that I do, so Orias is saying the problem with trying to find the right teacher is finding one who will actually be right and safe for you. That's why you should read my book. I talk about in the book the traits of an ethical psychic. And so when you're looking for a teacher, you look for those traits. And I talk about red flags, you know. So like your teacher should be humble. Your teacher shouldn't claim to know everything. They should be able to say what they don't know. Um, you know, there's some traits you should look for. So get my book, The Ethical Psychic. Yeah, that was funny about Switzerland, wasn't it? They're neutral, but they're like, don't fly over our country. We're not going to be neutral on this. Yeah, so Sonia Ross, Intuitive Messenger, is also weighing in. Training helped them so much with their mediumship abilities. They've also been reading the OGs, the originals, Edgar Casey, Chico Javier, etc. Yeah, I also read all of Edgar Casey's stuff. Oh yeah, here's one of the books I was recommending, Practical Psychic Self-Defense Handbook. Oh, Cement Head said they had a precognitive experience foreseeing this stupid timeline back in 2018. I think a lot of people did. You know, like I was getting a lot of precognitive information during the pandemic, and I did a whole podcast. My podcast, Rule of a Medical Intuitive. Um, I did like weekly podcasts about predictions about COVID, and a lot of them came true. Um, but even back then, I was getting some information that I realize now is about what we're going through now. Um, like for example, Canada, Sister Canada. Let me talk about Sister Canada for a minute. One of the things I got back in 2020 was that Canada was going to become our big sister. I think that's why I started calling all the countries sister. Like whenever anyone comes into my comments or chat and they say they're from the country, I say welcome sister, whatever the name of the country is, because we're all family, right? And so Sister Canada, what I was shown back in 2020 was that they were going to be like a big sister to the United States. And I was also shown that a lot of people were going to go to Canada, like we're going to leave the US and move to Canada. And, you know, that was 6 years ago. And now it's happening, right? Now a lot of people are leaving and going to Canada. And now we are starting to see that Canada is the adult, you know, one of the adults of it, right? Um, I think we're starting to see some leadership up there, which is admirable. And I feel like that's starting to happen now. And so that's kind of how precognition is, right? Like you can see something in the future, but you don't always know how far in the future it's going to happen. And of course, we're always looking for time markers, you know, like the apple blossoms. We're always like, give us a time frame. But oftentimes, when I see precognitive visions, you know, there's no calendar on the wall, right? And you know, a lot of times it's safe to assume that when you see a vision, it's something that's going to happen fairly soon. I think that's what I'm looking at my friend's doggy. What's wrong? You need something? We're going to go out and go potty soon. Taking care of my friend's doggy. I think she's bored. We're going to go out soon. You know, we see something in a precognitive vision and we just kind of assume that it's going to happen soon. And it doesn't always work out that way. I mean, sometimes it takes a while to manifest. Um, okay, so I'm going to do one more question. Yeah, this is also the case. Like Abby Yandel says, sometimes I've seen things that I can't speak on. I'm also shown things, and then I'm told you can't share this with the public. Um, uh-oh, you have to go potty. Okay, I'm coming. Starting to whine now. Oh yeah, this was a beautiful thing, wasn't it? Did you hear about this? The audience in Buffalo, something was wrong with the recording of the Canadian anthem, and so all of the people stood up and sang it at the hockey game. I'm just going to answer one more question. Then I'm going to take this dog out because I'm dog sitting. And yes, we do. We love Sister Canada. Okay, I'm going to answer. No, I'm not supposed to answer personal questions. I did answer one, but I'm trying not to do that. I want to answer, political questions. Okay, here's one. I'm going to answer this one. Um, what about the economy? How should we prepare? So I'm going to tune. I got some about this in the past, but I'm going to tune in now and see if there's anything new. And then I might talk about what I got in the past as well. All right, so plastics, one of the first things I see, plastics is going to be impacted by the conflict. And so anything that you would normally buy that includes plastic, the price is going to go up. I think it's related to petroleum, right? Um, so you want to think about stocking up on things that are made with plastic. So like if you buy it like laundry detergent, it comes in a plastic container, right? Or um, I don't know, whatever else you buy that comes in plastic. Think about that in terms of the price going up. Um, gas, obviously, I'm being shown a gas thing. Well, we already know that gas is going up. Um, I am being shown canned goods again. So I was shown that before that it's a good idea to stock up on canned goods. I was shown before that it's a good idea for people to have a garden, even if it's just like I live in an apartment. I don't have land, but I have like some pots on my porch, even if it's just a couple of pots in your apartment or on your patio to grow some things. And to get into like relationship with your neighbors because people can share stuff, right? Like maybe your neighbor has a yard and they can share with you, or maybe they'll let you farm a little plot in their backyard. Like we can start to have those conversations with our neighbors. Um, but yeah, we are going to be impacted um, in terms of the prices of things. So I'm not getting anything beyond what I just got, which is I think what we already knew. Gas and plastic two things are going up, and canned goods are a good thing to have. Um, but I do feel like you should think about the plastic and think about ways to transition. Like, let's say you buy water bottles. Sometimes you need water bottles, like if you're playing a sport or you're helping with kids' sports teams, right? People need to have individual water bottles. Everyone doesn't have a water bottle, right? So there are circumstances where, like when I'm medic, we buy bottled water because it's not hygienic to have a giant thing of water and have a lot of people drinking out of the same thing, right? People aren't carrying around their own water bottles, right? Like there are circumstances where you can't avoid um, plastic. So, but we're going to have to get creative, right? We're going to have to think about, okay, what can we figure out to get around that? Um, because some of those things are just going to become too cost prohibitive. And so we're going to have to adapt. So that's one thing I'm getting. And I'm going to share something I got before. I got that. So I was told a while ago to tell people to stock up on like canned goods and water. Um, And it's been quite some time, and we haven't had like a big calamity. But what we have had is slowly increasing prices to the point where we're paying significantly more now for groceries. And so I just kind of realized recently that I was very fortunate that when my guides told me to stock up on stuff, I did. And I have been eating that food for like 6 months. And so the shock of the groceries did not impact me. It was delayed. It didn't impact me as quickly as it did other people because I was eating the stuff in my cupboards, right? I had stocked up on, canned goods, on like tinned fish and um, soup, the soup that I like to eat. And I was eating that on a regular basis. And so I wasn't having to buy, I went to Costco and I stocked up on stuff and I kept doing it like every so often. I'd go stock up again. Now, everyone can't do this. Some people don't have the money to stock up. So this is something that only some people can do. But what I noticed about it recently was it helped me handle the price increases because that stuff that I bought it at the lower prices. And I slowly ate it over several months, and I still have stuff, and I'm restocking some of it. So if you have the capacity to do that, at least with certain items, do it because certain items are going to get just very, very expensive, especially anything to do with plastic. And there are predictions being made by some people about farming being negatively impacted by the absence of fertilizer because fertilizer is made from some ingredient that's dependent upon the Gulf, upon the trade of oil. And so people are saying it's going to have a big impact on the farm agriculture. And that's why people should have their own gardens. Now, my guides told me like a year ago, we should start planting our own gardens and growing your own stuff. Another thing you can do if you live in an apartment is that there are these things you can buy. I'm looking into them. There are these things you can buy like that help you grow a bunch of vegetables in a small amount of space. Like if you're in an apartment, there are these like vegetable plant trees. And I've looked at them and they're kind of pricey. And so I keep putting it off. But lately I've been thinking it might be a worthwhile investment if it means I'm going to have fresh produce when produce becomes too expensive or we stop having certain things available. So again, this is going to depend on your wherewithal. Can you afford one of those plant towers, one of those tomato tower things or potato tower things that will allow you to grow vegetables, in your kitchen because it comes with like artificial light. So like if you don't have a yard or land or even a porch, but you have the money to buy one of those little plant gazebos, think about it. But really, the message I've been getting for so long now, which relates to the current question of what do we do about how do we prepare for food not being available or being too expensive, is community, right? We all have to get into community. This should be like one of your number one priorities right now is getting to know your neighbors, forming community, joining clubs, finding, I look for, free things to go to. I'm playing sports right now, so I'm getting to know people that way. I go to different things that I find on Meetup or at the library. I just look for stuff. And you just meet people and and then I also talk to my neighbors. Like they walk by, I say hello, we chat, and I'm, trying to get to know people because community is going to be the way that we handle anything that comes our way. If there's a food shortage, if there's a gas shortage, right? We're going to have to rely on each other and share resources and be there for each other. And so the best way to prepare for, price hikes and shortages is to be in community so that you can share. Like I have a lot of stuff I've been stocking up on canned goods and stuff for a while, partially because my guides told me to, but also because I've got a little bit of, fear of going hungry because I went hungry as a child. And so, I'm probably over prepared. But what I always tell myself is, you know what? If something goes down, I can feed my neighbors, right? I can invite my neighbors and say, look, I've got 5 cans of salmon. I'm only one person. What do you have? Let's trade. You got what? You got some cans of carrots? I'll trade you, right? Or whatever, right? So don't worry about if you have too much stuff, because you can always trade it with somebody or give it to a food bank. I did give some stuff to some food banks, like for the immigrants who are being forced to stay at home and people who lost their jobs. And so I did like give away some of my stuff that because I was like, I have too much. Um, so you can always do that. You can always give it to somebody or trade it with somebody and help somebody out or feed somebody, right? Feed your neighbors or feed your family. Um, and it's always good to support Costco because they have good politics. So that's my answer to that question. And I'm going to close with that. And Bad Kitty is saying thank you in their language, Miigwech. And Shobache is thank you in mine. So thank you all for being here. And I'm going to go take the doggy out. And I will see you next week. Remember when you're done with the live to make sure you like the video. Go to the live tab and like the replay. And, put a comment if you feel so inclined. That way more people will see it. You can see the replay on my channel on YouTube under the live tab. All of my people giving advice about what to stock up on: beans, corn, mushrooms, soup, flour, oats, rice. Oh, someone's worried about the puppy. Yeah, she went back to sleep. Yeah. So I'm going to take her out right now. She went out before I started the live. She's had 2 walks already, so she's not suffering. She's also had a lot of snacks. But we're going to go for another, we're going to go outside again. Just make sure you heard me talking about you. Yeah, we're going to go outside. So thank you, everybody, and I will see you next time.